Play to win your share of $1 million every week this football season at DraftKings.com. With 1 Week Fantasy at DraftKings, you can play when you want with a team you want. Just pick your contest, pick your team, and pick up your winnings. Hurry to DraftKings.com now. Use code TAKE and play for free with your first deposit in Sunday's $1 million fantasy contest. This isn't fantasy as usual. This is DraftKings. Welcome to the big time. Enter TAKE for free entry now only at DraftKings.com. That's DraftKings.com.
The topics are hot. The discussion is heated. And we're on fire. The First Take Podcast starts now.
Here's what's coming up on the First Take Podcast. Will the Panthers keep rolling, or will the Colts get a Monday night win? Plus, the Royals win the World Series. So what led to the KC masterpiece? And Des Bryant has some heated words for the media. Let's get started. So fired up for today's show. We have so much to get into. Thank you for starting your week with us. Welcome into First Take. Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith, Molly Karam here with you. Gentlemen, good morning.
Listen, I respect you for just showing up today. I'm impressed. Way to go.
Well, I'm not you.
Huh? You got courage.
I'm not you. I get my comeuppance today. This was not a good weekend for me. So I have to come in here and eat crow on several.
Will you shake
He might have got a couple right.
Thank you.
I really didn't want to.
All right, I know.
But I will.
I know you didn't.
You got me today. You got me today. All right, I got it.
All right, here we go.
I got
You had a good week. But how about
Except for
them
my
Cowboys? We'll get into them in just a bit, and of course Dez as well. But first, let's focus on the battle of undefeateds. The Broncos defense, reminiscent of the Orange Crush, made the Packers offense look pedestrian with a 29-10 win in Mile High. Skip, was this more about Denver's defense or Aaron Rodgers?
Oh, wait a second. Stephen A. Smith, I got my stats here, and my stats say that, did I fall asleep and dream that Aaron Rodgers had a grand total of 77 yards
Yeah.
Can I repeat that again?
Yeah.
77 yards passing. So once again, last night, the bad man was just bad. In fact, he was beyond bad. He was horrible, the bad man was. I got to say this, because this was my final thought at the end of that game last night. For once, Aaron Rodgers looked more like Mr. Rodgers. He really did. The Denver Broncos made Aaron Rodgers look like Mr. Rodgers. Who knew? Who would have thought? And I'm going to ask you again, as I sit here and ask you week after week, when are you and all those blind Aaron Rodgers worshipers out there, most of you in Packer Nation, when are you going to wake up? And when are you going to realize that the bad man just is not that good, especially when it matters most? Now, again, for perspective, the bad man did go on one miraculous road team playoff run, a wild card run through the playoffs that consisted of winning at Michael Vick in Philadelphia when he was really shaky, at Matt Ryan when he was really shaky, and then at Jay Cutler when he wound up on the bicycle in the second half. Your favorite game off which to ridicule Jay Cutler. Those are the three games Aaron Rodgers won to get to a Super Bowl in which Troy Polamalu was not able to run on his bad hamstring, and during which Aaron Rodgers' defense was sensational and did a number on Big Ben in that Super Bowl. So that was a long time ago. And since then, your man Aaron Rodgers is 2-4 in the postseason. And as of last night, Aaron Rodgers on the road in primetime games, nighttime games, he fell to 3-9 on the road, primetime, 3-9 for the bad man who was just bad. So the point is, he can front run at Lambeau Field. We know that. And most of their games are at Lambeau Field because they play about three-quarters of their games at home. But you make him play away under the lights, and Aaron Rodgers melts. And look, I realize the Denver Broncos have the best pass rush in pro football. There's no doubt about that. But again and again, Aaron Rodgers' offensive line did give him enough time to stand in the pocket and make one read and throw it to one receiver, just the way Tom Brady is constantly forced to do behind that makeshift, least experienced in the NFL offensive line of New England's. But again and again, Aaron Rodgers stood behind his offensive line, and he tap danced like the late, great Gregory Hines. He did. He tap danced. They kept him in the pocket. They would not let him loose. And he tap danced like the late, great Gregory Hines. I've never seen anything like it before. Aaron Rodgers does not belong in the same sentence with Tom Brady, so I strike the sentence I just uttered because it doesn't count. He doesn't belong in that sentence. Last night, Aaron Rodgers was badly outplayed by a washed-up, quote-unquote, Peyton Manning, who, by the way, looked a whole lot like Peyton Manning to me. As I keep telling you, I think he's just fine. So, bad indeed, Stephen A. Smith. What do you have to say for yourself?
Well, I'm willing to concede it was a god-awful night by the Green Bay Packers. Could y'all turn that video off, please, while I'm talking? Let me be very, very clear. It was a very bad night by the Green Bay Packers. Yeah. They were absolutely pathetic and god-awful. They got completely outplayed and embarrassed on national television. All of that is true. But Skip Bayless, I'm here to tell you I am not willing to concede what you have conceded about that bad man that is Aaron Rodgers, who undoubtedly had the worst night I've ever seen him have in all my years of watching him. There is no question about that. It was anemic. It was pathetic. It was awful. He passed for 35 yards, I think 37 yards, in the first half. He only attempted 12 passes in the first half. He finished the game only attempting 22 passes, completing 14 for 77 yards. All of those things were embarrassing. But unlike you, who sits there and uses every little nugget that you can to just jump on the people that you want to jump on while you try to defend the people that you want to defend. Okay. I'm going to sit here and be fair.
You are.
I'm going to be fair. And I'm going to be fair.
Like and you are when my Cowboys lose.
Yes, that kind of fair. And I'm a Steelers fan, first of all, and I root for the New York teams. I don't root for Green Bay. I root for Aaron Rodgers. Let me be very, very clear. Skip Bayless, I think you're being grotesquely unfair because I don't think that you are taking into account what this man had to work with. First of all, yes, Denver had 3 sacks. Yes, Denver jumped out to a 17-0 lead. Therefore, they could take chances. They could go at him all night long, and there was little to nothing he could do. You know why? Because I don't care how great of a quarterback he is. When you have guys in Randall Cobb and Starks who cannot get open, and don't get me started with Richard Rodgers.
Randall Cobb can't get open?
They didn't get open. They weren't getting open last night.
What if they got open quickly?
I let you talk. I didn't say a word. I let you go on your little soliloquy. I didn't say a word. I sat here and I took it. All right? The Denver Broncos are number 1 in points allowed, number 1 in yards allowed, number 1 in pass yards allowed. They have the elite defense in the game. Meanwhile, Green Bay's defense, which I continuously lament, I have repeatedly told you I didn't trust. You even brought up the fact that how they played over the first 6 games. I said it means nothing to me. I do not trust that defense. Gave up 500-plus yards to this offense. Gave up 160 yards to a rushing attack that hadn't done that in the first 6 games of this season. You look at what transpired last night. And Aaron Rodgers had to go up against an elite defense, and Peyton Manning did not. Aaron Rodgers had guys who could not get open. He was back there, he was scrambling in the pocket, running for his life, and guys still couldn't get open, even after he created time and space for them to do it. So in the end, all I learned from last night, regardless of what you want to say about Aaron Rodgers, all I learned last night is the absence of Jordy Nelson, what that means to this team, the fact that he doesn't have enough weapons, the fact that their defense isn't much to brag about by any stretch of the imagination. You combine all of that with the IQ of a Peyton Manning, a running game that showed up against that suspect defense, a secondary which, by the way, is unquestionably the best in the NFL right now. We've been talking about the New York Jets. We'll get into them a little bit later on in the show. But the bottom line is Aqib Talib and Chris Harris together. I mean, you have basically gone about the business with Wade Phillips as his defensive coordinator, because we all know, whereas we have questions about Wade Phillips, the head coach, there is no question about him as a defensive coordinator. You look at what that secondary is able to do. Denver's got the best secondary in the NFL. That is what Aaron Rodgers went up against last night. with devoid of the weapons he needed. Guys couldn't get open, but ultimately he's the quarterback, he's the star of the franchise, and he looks every bit as bad as everybody else because the sun shines and sets with him in Green Bay. It is what it is, period. Green Bay, to me, I just wasn't impressed.
Okay, now I'm going to remind you, Green Bay's defense came into this game last night ranked #1 in the NFL in points allowed.
Right.
Remember?
Yes.
Okay, so you can't tell me that Green Bay's defense is all that.
Well, who had they gone against, Skip?
Broncos. What's that?
Who had they gone against? That was my issue with Green Bay. I didn't think much of them, is all I'm trying to say to you. I've never been sold on them. I think everything about Green Bay, all right, with the exception of Shields making a play here or there, or Clint Dix, the bottom line is it's about Clay Matthews and whether or not he can get to the quarterback. If he can't do it, you don't hear much about anything from Green Bay's defense. They usually don't break, but they bend an awful lot. And against somebody like Peyton Manning, they're going to break. In the end, this defense got exposed big time. That's what happened last night more than anything. The offense, look, man, you've got a guy in Starks, for example. You just look at him. I'm sorry, Joe. You just look at these guys with the Giants, with the Oakland Raiders, couldn't last. Everybody was making a big deal about what he was going to do when he was with Green Bay. What has happened? Couldn't get open last night. Randall Cobb had 6 receptions. He could barely do but so much because they were able to key on him. You're limited. It's just that simple. You're just limited.
So I remind you, James Jones came into this game leading the NFL in touchdown catches.
I understand.
Am I right about that?
I understand.
And I'm not sure what happened last night, but
what do you mean you're not sure?
He caught one ball for 2 yards.
Wait a minute. Don't lie to the American public.
Okay,
you know too much football not to know what happened to them defensively.
You cannot give this quarterback a pass for what happened. Again and again, he had a first look. He had time. But the point was that the bully got bullied because at home, Aaron Rodgers front runs on everybody. And if you do let him get out of the pocket, he will run it down your throat and throw it down your throat. But they kept him in the pocket. They made him take a first look, and he choked. He's like, double clutching because he's not Tom Brady. Tom Brady gets rid of it in 2.5 seconds every play. He picks out a receiver that's going to be open before the snap, and he says, boom.
And all I'm saying,
boom.
and all I'm saying to you is the operative phrase there is who are going to get open. There was nobody open for Green Bay last night. That's what I'm trying to say. Are you trying to tell me, because I know how meticulous you watch football games, but I also know how duplicitous you can be, because you'll say what you want to say to make your point, and you'll ignore other facts. You're trying to tell me you saw Green Bay Packers receivers open? Did you see receivers open last night? Did you see receivers open?
Yes, I saw Randall Cobb finally catch a ball and look up like, I've been open. Like he's looking around like, I've been open. Find me. I've been open. Aaron.
I've been open.
Mr. Rogers.
Against Akeem Talib and Chris Harris.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You sure about that? You know better. You know better.
You know
there was nobody open.
I cannot wait for November 29th when Tom Brady visits that same stadium that we were watching in last night.
Okay.
Because Tom Brady will not have these issues against that defense. I'm not saying he'll pick it to pieces, but trust me, I'll bet you right now, Tom Brady throws for more than 77 yards.
We're going to discuss that one later.
We will discuss it later, but Tom Brady will have 77 yards in warm-up. In pregame warm-up, he will have 77.
I would like to remind you, he does have somebody by the name of Rob Gronkowski. And when you have the best tight end in football who forces you to suffocate the middle to some degree, and you can't cheat on the outside the way you can against most teams, that does go a mighty long way. And I'm not taking away anything from Amendola or Julian Edelman, because I know that they played effectively with Tom Brady as their quarterback. What I'm saying to you is this. That's an elite weapon to have. A matter of fact, we've debated about Peyton Manning. You know, Owen Daniels and Green showed up at the tight end spot yesterday, but they were missing in action the first 6 games, okay? So a lot of people felt that had something to do with what has served to neutralize Denver's offense. Having an elite tight end helps. Having Julius Thomas all of those years helped Peyton Manning. That not having him has affected Peyton Manning. You're Tom Brady and you have Rob Gronkowski. That goes a mighty long way. Who the hell does Aaron Rodgers have? Richard Rodgers. Sounds like a daggone burger, for crying out loud. I mean, you kidding me? I don't want to hear that.
Like Roy Rodgers?
Yes, sir, like Roy Rodgers. Like a burger joint. I meant a burger joint. I meant a burger joint. But what I'm saying to you is that That's
Sounds
what
like
you
a
have.
Composer to me.
Yeah, something like that. Well, it sounds like a burger drink to me. But
Well,
it's
where
like,
both your minds
that's
go,
what
it's
you
beautiful.
have.
Yeah.
That's what you have available to you. Again, this is not the day for me to make a case for Aaron Rodgers. He got beat down last night. I've never seen him
wasn't a
look
beautiful
that bad.
day in the neighborhood.
I haven't seen him.
That's right.
Wasn't a beautiful day. Touche.
Yes, thank you.
I have not seen Aaron Rodgers look that bad. But I also didn't see any receivers open. And I think that had a lot to do with it.
It had
I really
a lot to do with it?
I really believe that.
Yeah, and Tom Brady has who to get deep? Who's their
Wait a
deep
minute. Wait.
receiver?
What again?
Help me out. Help me out.
Once again.
Who gets deep for Tom Brady? Who spreads who stretches the defense?
Well, again,
nobody.
If you have a Rob Gronkowski forcing you to sandwich and suffocate the middle, then you can do other things because Rob Gronkowski demands that kind of attention. Even on guys that are not sticking him, they constantly have to keep an eye. They can't take their eyes off of him. They can't let him leave their sights because he's that lethal. And that does open things up. Ask Edelman, ask Amendola,
wait a
ask
second.
LaFell, who dropped so many passes, at least over the last 2 weeks. Ask them what Rob Gronkowski does for them.
We are talking about the guy that you say is the greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL. You've never seen anything like him before.
I have said to you, I have never seen a quarterback more talented than Aaron Rodgers, and I sit here today and still say that. It's a bad night. I've never seen a quarterback more talented than him.
How can he throw for 77?
Well, because guys couldn't get open.
Oh, okay.
Guys couldn't get open against the #1 defense with the #1 secondary in all of the NFL.
If he's that great, he could.
Listen. You have said Aqib Talib is great during the regular season. You worry about his durability and his reliability come postseason time. You've praised Chris Harris. We know how elite those dudes are. With the TJ Ward and the rest of the crew up in there, look, they can ball, man. Their defense is no joke. And now that they've got Wade Phillips, that helps even more. I mean, Gary Kubiak's got to be the luckiest man on the planet. Mediocrity in Houston, coaching the team, and you land in Denver with that. I mean, it's unbelievable. Listen, only in America, but it is what it is.
Okay.
Aaron Rodgers got beat down last night.
Last 2 quick points.
Period.
Tom Brady throws open his receivers. That's what Aaron Rodgers should have done last night. And number 2, we got to give a quick point of order here that Peyton Manning was special last night. You got to give that up, right?
Absolutely.
He was just special.
He was.
To complete 6 out of 9 from 15 yards farther.
He was, but again, Green Bay's defense never moved. We talked about it last week when you talked about how the numbers show that they will. I said, Skip, this is not an elite defense. You see them bending a lot. They can be exposed. And every time they go up against a big-time team, they get exposed. It's always Rodgers coming to save the day.
You did think that Green Bay could go in there and win.
I thought Aaron Rodgers could go in there and win.
Rodgers has now lost 9 straight on the road against teams with winning records. To Skip's point, his last win was December 16th, 2012 at the Bears. You talk about boom, boom. We had a lot of that in this next one. Plenty of history was made on the offensive side of the ball in New Orleans Sunday. Drew Brees and Eli Manning combined for a single game record, 13 pass TDs, and combined for 101 points basketball score, tied for the 3rd most points by both teams in NFL history. Stephen A., what was your takeaway from that ridiculous shootout?
Honestly speaking, my takeaway from the game, the first thing that came to my mind was both defensive coordinators should be forced to fly commercial home. They shouldn't be allowed.
I thought you were going to say they should be fired.
No, because, I mean, obviously they ain't giving up 52 every week or 49 every week. But both defensive coordinators, Spagnuolo and, of course, Rob Ryan, should not even have been allowed. In Spagnuolo's case, don't even get on a team plane. In Rob Ryan's case, you know what? Just make him walk home. I mean, it's like literally, you literally owe your owners a check for this week. You know, because you clearly didn't show up on the job unless you apply for vacation and you tap it onto your vacation. You did nothing. There was no defense. I mean, the Giants' defense yesterday was so embarrassing. I mean, how many times did Drew Brees throw a touchdown? I know he had 7 touchdown passes, but how many times did he throw a touchdown pass? And you literally saw the Giants defense looking around at one another like, what happened? You were supposed to be there. You were supposed to be. I mean, it's almost like they didn't show up to work. They just showed up in New Orleans for a game. And then the next thing you know, this kind of stuff happens. Of course, Drew Brees was sensational. Eli Manning showed up. Odell Beckham Jr. had a 100-yard-plus game. He showed up. We see what was happening here. but there was literally no defense. It looked like a Big 12 game for crying out loud. No defense whatsoever. And by the way, Tom Coughlin should be ashamed of himself, too. This man has a defensive background. This man has credentials. He's a two-time Super Bowl champion. And talk about the identity of the New York Giants. When they won Super Bowls, it was all about their defense. With Parcells, with Tom Coughlin, okay? Led by Strahan or Justin Tucker or these boys. It didn't matter. You saw a defense. Never in my wildest dreams did I think we'd see a big blue team that was so god-awful defensively. I don't care who's hurt. I'm not even going into all those semantics. How could you look that bad?
Yeah.
They were atrocious to the point where it doesn't even make sense to me to talk about a Drew Brees or to talk about an Eli Manning because it really doesn't matter. This Giants team that I saw ain't winning the NFC East. It's not happening. You got to be able to play defense. It's now, to me, after yesterday's performance, it's back to being about Dallas and Philadelphia, more so Philadelphia than Dallas for obvious reasons, which we'll get into a little bit later. But in the end, the Giants, I don't care about their 4-4 record. I don't care about the fact that they're in first place. You can't play defense like that and win. That was just embarrassing. That's all I took from it. I just sat up there and watched. It's like, this is not an NFL game. And if it were college, you're excited about it. But there's something about it being an NFL game that just turns you off. That you look at the NFL and you literally said to yourself, these are supposed to be professionals. How do you look? Even when New England dropped 50 on Jacksonville didn't look like that. You know, you just got methodically picked apart by a clearly superior team. No, in the case of the Giants against the Saints, it literally looked like both teams decided not to play defense.
The 29th and 30th ranked defense going into it, total.
I mean, I couldn't believe how bad they looked. I really couldn't.
Did the game count?
Yes.
It goes in the standings,
It goes in the standings.
Okay, I want to make sure of that because you said it didn't look like an NFL game.
It did, yeah.
And by the way, before I launch on this, Molly is threatening to unfollow me on Twitter.
I trolled him last night.
I thanked the Saints for winning that game for me and my Cowboys, and in it, I wrote Giants in all lowercase letters.
And everything
like
else
little
in
Giants.
caps.
Okay?
Just obnoxious.
She's going to unfollow me over
Yeah, it was obnoxious.
That's fine. Okay, here's my takeaway. No team that gives up 52 points deserves to win the NFC East. I'm sorry, no team. Right. So that was my number one takeaway. And number two, because the game did count in the standings, dropping the Giants to, 4-4?
First place.
Now, somehow, some way, embarrassingly enough for the division, my Dallas Cowboys are still only one game out of first place in the loss column. Only one game out of first place in the loss. Are you kidding me? And, my other takeaway was that the ultimate new accident waiting to happen in pro football is your New York Giants. How did they lose that opening game at Jerry World?
And then follow that up by a loss.
And they lost to the Falcons. And the Falcons are starting to get exposed as just pretty good. Not great, not dominant. They're just pretty good. They lost at home to Tampa. They almost lost at home to the Redskins. Remember that? So they're getting exposed.
Yes.
They're coming back to earth quickly. And yesterday, the New York Football Giants managed to blow this game on a face mask penalty by the punter.
By the punter.
By Brad Wing. The punter. Here he is. He gets a face mask as the ball is fumbled forward.
This is Cowboys-esque.
This is Cowboys-esque.
Yeah.
This is old Cowboys. Previous Cowboys-esque. These are the Cowboys you used to laugh at, scoff at, ridicule for being the accident waiting to happen. And now it's Brad Wing. Brad Wing, he gets a face mask, and all of a sudden they've got a 50-yard field goal, and the new kicker hits it, and the game is over. And here's the God's truth of what happened yesterday. Your Giants didn't deserve to win this game because your Giants were 1 out of 8 on third down. In this shootout, they still were only 1 of 8 on third down. And when you look at the total yards, your Giants had 416, which is really good. The other team's got 614, so almost 200 fewer yards do your Giants have than Drew Brees and company, right?
Yeah.
And the Giants did have 1 defensive touchdown on the fumble return, 63 yards. Okay, so you hang in. That actually put you ahead. But the home team had 2 turnovers, and the Giants only had 1 turnover.
Yeah.
So I look at what happened. Your Giants were lucky to be in the game, and then incredibly unlucky to blow the game in the end. They come back to the pack. And the truth is, the NFC East, halfway through, it hasn't even started yet, right? It's like, it's up for grabs now. It's still, I don't know, the Washington Redskins could win the NFC East for all I know.
Yo, listen, they're only a game back.
That's what I'm saying.
They're only a game back. I mean, it's again, Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, I want to sort of omit him from this conversation because he makes plays. He's had 3 interceptions in the last 2 weeks. He finds a way to keep himself actively involved. Yeah. I get all of that, but I mean, this is some embarrassing stuff here. And you Spagnola, I mean, you should be ashamed of yourself. You Rob Ryan. I don't care that you won. You should be ashamed of yourself. You Rob Ryan, your defense. I mean, talk about somebody that lost his luster. I mean, think about it. Once upon a time, we just sat there and said if he lost some weight and got a haircut, we you know what, he could be a head coach. He could be a head coach. Gotta look at Paul. Gotta show up to work, look a professional. Get a haircut. Go to a salon, or in his case, a salon, not a barbershop, and just get the haircut. Do whatever. Okay. Do whatever you need to do. Yeah. But then you look at this defense and the way that it has played, particularly yesterday too. Just no excuse whatsoever. And the Giants didn't even run the football. Everything was with their passing attack. And you just looked at it, and somehow, some way, despite throwing 6 touchdown passes, 350 yards. I mean, what is it here? A rating of 138. Yeah. Somehow, some way, Eli Manning still lost this game.
He lost the game.
The New Orleans, listen, New Orleans defense is bad. It was bad yesterday. But the Giants were so embarrassing because, again, at least when New Orleans got beat, there was somebody in the vicinity. Yep. I mean, you look at the Giants, it was like, literally, who was it that scored the one touchdown when he's just strolling in? When he just strolling I mean, who was it? I mean, literally walking in, looking behind, and it's like, there's nobody near me.
Nobody's home.
He literally could have walked the last 30 yards.
Most yards allowed since 1943 by the Giants.
I don't even understand it. I really don't understand it. He literally could have walked the last 30 yards. Yeah. Walked.
Was that fun for you? Did you enjoy that?
Great time. That was my great moment of the day.
Yeah. How about those Cowboys? We'll talk about
Colston.
them.
Colston.
It was Colston. Yeah. I'm just saying. I just looking at him. He's like he couldn't believe how wide open he was. Yeah. It was just embarrassing, man. And like I said, it's an NFL game. You don't anticipate seeing something like that. That was just bad.
Okay. As long as we don't have to talk about the Cowboys today, I'll be happier.
Right. Of course we're talking about the Cowboys today. Of course.
Oh, well, I'll lay out of this one. Right. I'll let Stephen A. handle it.
Please. The NFC is looking like the AFC South. It's bad. The Seahawks pull off the win in Jerry's World with a late field goal, as you just saw. A low-scoring affair, 13-12. Now, of course, Stephen A. had Seattle as his NFC Super Bowl pick, skip Dallas. Stephen A., how do you feel about your Super Bowl pick now?
I'm not comfortable with them. I think the offense needs to get going a little bit more. I mean, you've got Jimmy Graham, you've got Beast Mode. We've seen the addition of Rawls, who's been impressive. Obviously, Lockett is there. Not who got hurt, but
the little Lockett.
The little Lockett. Little Lockett is there, and we wish nothing but the best for Ricardo Lockett, which we'll get into a little bit later on. But they've got the requisite weapons on the offensive side of the ball, even though there have been some issues with that offensive line. But because there's been issues with that offensive line, Russell Wilson entered yesterday's game being sacked more than anybody, and Marshawn Lynch hasn't appeared to be beast mode for more than one game this season, which was last week, more so than at any other time, even though we all know he missed a couple of games. In the end, when you look at it from that perspective, I must say that, I'm still not giving up on them because they've got time to right the ship. But the way they're looking right now, they're not going to win the Super Bowl. I think their defense is coming together more and more and more since Cam Chancellor has gotten back to sort of spearhead that defense. And I think that Richard Sherman is playing better than he did a few weeks ago. So let's throw that out there as well. And Kerry Williams is adapting to some degree in the secondary with the Legion of Boom. Earl Thomas, Bobby Wagner, and those boys are doing what they're doing. Bennett made a stupid penalty, almost cost the Seattle Seahawks yesterday because it gave Dallas some additional life with Wagner and them pointing at him, telling him to use his head. But ultimately, this defense is playing the way an elite defense is supposed to play. They can't carry the offense, however. Your offense can't be a walk and 3 and out. What Russell Wilson was in that last drive to set up the winning field goal, running on a couple of plays, is what makes Seattle most effective offensively. Because when there's the threat of him running and he shows a willingness to utilize it, it makes everybody a bit cautious, and then you can take chances downfield that you otherwise can't take when he's not looking to run the football. Allow me, however, to get into the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh,
just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Enjoy it.
I'm not going to make fun. This is not the day for me to do it because, again, Aaron Rodgers looked bad. The Giants looked awful. The Steelers lost. Yeah. So this ain't the day for that. And the Mets, yes, blew it, choked. But we'll get into that a little bit later, too. The reality, Skip, is this, and it's something that we have said a long time ago, but certainly haven't had a reason to say in the last year and a half, 2 years. Skip, I think Jason Garrett is a bit overrated. I think somebody needs to say this.
Whoever rated it.
Well, they were 12-4. They did win a division last year. He got a lot of credit, and we gave that to him. Skip, I watch him, and I consider him a front runner. And you know your man Omar Epps, the actor that was on here. We love him. He's a diehard Cowboy fan, just like you are. He said the same thing. But it's like, listen, Jason Garrett's a front runner. When everything is right and all the personnel is there, he can help. He'll make sure you don't beat yourself. Yeah. But a good coach, if not a great coach, is supposed to be able to elevate you even when you don't have your requisite weapons. Now, you can't be what you are with Tony Romo. Yeah. But my goodness, you've been in position to win some of these games if you're the Dallas Cowboys. 2 games you had to lead in the fourth quarter. A couple of other games you were right there. And somehow, some way you've lost 5 straight. And Jason Garrett seems incapable of stopping the bleeding. And then I stood around and I watched again that whole Hardy explosion on the sideline from more than a week ago. And I see everybody getting in his face but Jason Garrett, who literally stood there and did nothing. And I just look at this guy and I'm like, there's something missing. I'm not saying the man doesn't know football. I would never accuse him of that. I'm just saying whatever that it factor is that you need from a head coach, he does not appear to have. Dallas actually should have won that game last night. And by the way, that wasn't a touchdown by Wilson, and I get that, but it was close enough where I can understand how the officials could give it to him, and to me, they would have scored anyway from that position. Right. So it's no big deal. That's all I got to say.
Finished?
Yep.
Is the show over yet? That was a long answer.
I didn't think it was, but go ahead.
All right. There's a two for one.
Yeah, it wasn't nearly as long as you starting off the show talking about Aaron Rodgers.
That was some rich stuff. That was some A material.
Yeah. You're allowed to bring it once every 6 months. Go ahead.
Oh!
to your Jason Garrett point, right. What he does best is he claps, he backslaps, he pushes the guys like for fun when they come off the field, like way to go. You know, he's a cheerleader.
Yeah.
Right. Seriously. He's like a male cheerleader, like the Texas A&M male cheerleaders. They're great. I love to watch them, but I don't want him coaching my team, especially.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't knock you.
Here's what's funny about what you just said. I am more up on your Seahawks than I am on my Cowboys. Where I liked them yesterday. I thought they were good. I thought when Russell Wilson needed to make some plays, he converted 3 straight big third downs. Not easy. And got him down in position to win the football game with a field goal. I admired that about him. And that defense, it's rounding back into form. You got to admit, it's formidable now, right? Yeah. Richard Sherman was really good. I would like to see Richard Sherman against a 100% healthy Des Bryant being thrown to by Tony Romo, but that's a whole other issue. Yeah. Maybe God help us, we'd see that somewhere down maybe in the postseason. But I'm about to give up on my postseason chances here because we have gone from the castle to the outhouse, have my Cowboys. I was trying to do it the other way around, but now we have gone to the outhouse. That's 5 straight losses. It's tearing my soul out game after game. That was excruciating. I knew it was coming. I picked the Seahawks, and not once in that whole game did I ever really believe my Dallas Cowboys would win that game. And yet, they teased me, and they pulled me along, and I had to sit and wait all the way to the bitter end for another kick me in the stomach kind of a loss. My point is, in the end, and I tweeted this yesterday, and I'm not joking about this, Matt Castle made me miss Brandon Weeden.
I laughed when I read that on my timeline. I did laugh.
But I'm serious. Yeah. I'm ready to say maybe we should have just stayed on the Weeden. Stayed on the Weeden. Right. I don't know. Because Matt Castle was almost as bad as Mr. Rogers was in the late game. He was. He threw for 97 yards. Aaron Rodgers, 77 yards. But still. It felt inept the whole day. It felt like we had no shot the whole day with Matt Castle, even though I know he tries to throw the ball down the field a lot more than Brandon Weeden did. It's like he's throwing a Nerf football. It's like he's throwing a baseball changeup where the arm motion is fast and the ball comes out with no velocity. I'm saying, what was that, a slip pitch? You know, what was that? Because the ball just hangs in the air like a punt. I get why Buffalo said, you know what, we're going with Tyrod here. Because when we were up at the camp, I really thought, well, they'll just try to get Matt Castle to be a caretaker, game manager. But they said, no, he's pretty much washed up, and he looked washed up to me yesterday. My defense did hang in pretty well. I will give him that, except when it was time to make a play, they couldn't make the play. And finally, obviously, for the first time in 5 games, somebody forced a turnover. Way to go, Greg Hardy. Bats the ball up in the air, intercepts it. And then what happened? Greg Hardy let the 5'10" quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks tackle him, drop him like a big sack of potatoes, tackle him around. Look at this. He tackles Greg Hardy. Do you realize
Super Bowl winning quarterback?
Yeah, okay, this is it. He tackles him. Stephen A., he's going to score because beast mode's coming behind him, but I don't think he would have caught him. I just don't think he would have caught him.
Sometimes.
Okay.
Why you treat Greg Hardy like he's a running back?
Here's what I thought. You know why? At that moment, I wanted some of the special team players to run up to him and get in his face. You let the little quarterback, the shortest quarterback in football tackle you?
First of all,
That's what I wanted.
First of all, this isn't basketball where he's a center and you're trying to defend him and block his shot. This is football. It doesn't matter what your height is when it comes to a tackle.
Hey.
You ever see them legs on Russell Wilson? He's not some little miniature small dude. No matter how big Greg Hardy, let me just say, he got massive legs. Okay, that's number one. Number two, Greg Hardy sat up there and tapped the ball and then came down and tried to run, but Russell Wilson was already practically at his legs. Number 3, he's a defensive tackle. He's not a
stiff arm.
Defensive end.
Stiff arm.
Run
through him.
Russell Wilson. Skip. That's ridiculous.
Run through him.
The fact is, Russell Wilson's relatively short. Look at down his legs. What's he supposed to do?
Cost him 4 points and effectively. Okay, I'll give it up to Russell Wilson.
Right.
I'll flip it around and do positive Russell. Right. He saved the game for the Seahawks.
That's all.
Because if Greg Hardy scores, that's +4 because obviously Matt Castle stalls and we have to kick the field goal. 4 points. It was huge in that game. So,
and let's also not forget this. Marshawn Lynch gets tackled out of bounds. You don't get tackled out of bounds. Dallas Billy
still had no shot. They had no shot. I never thought I had a shot.
He gave them like an additional 45 seconds, which wasn't smart on his part.
Okay, you could have given him 3 minutes and 45 seconds, and Matt Castle could not have gotten the ball even in field goal position. So the point is, look, Dez came back. We both thought it was a little prematurely. He did not look 100% confident pushing off the surgically repaired foot. To me, he just didn't look it.
Right.
So even with Dez, and it lifted, it obviously inspired the team, and they hung in, blah, blah, blah. But now, can Matt Castle beat Sam Bradford next Sunday at Jerry World? I don't know. I hope so, but I wouldn't bet a nickel on it right now.
Depends what Eagles team shows up.
Okay, but it's going to come down to that for my Cowboys.
I would remind you, once again, we get back to Jason Garrett, because when Jason Garrett took over for the Cowboys, if you recall, Tony Romo was out and John Kitna was your quarterback. All right, Tony Romo's rating at that point.
Kitna wasn't bad.
I know he wasn't bad. What I'm trying to say is that you went 5-3 without Romo before in the past. You had John Kitna. This time with Weeden, and let me say this to you. I think Brandon Weeden's getting a bad rap. I repeat. The Dallas Cowboys, think about it. You had the lead against the Atlanta Falcons. You were tied in overtime, and that was a defensive miscommunication. Okay. Brandon Weeden.
So would you put him back in next week?
Yeah,
would you go with him?
Why not? What do you have to lose? Because, Matt Castle's not, again, like
everything's a game.
I would put Brandon Weeden back in there this week. Why not? Because I got to tell you, I thought he got a bad rap. I never thought that he should have been taken out. It just didn't matter whether he did or didn't because it's the Cowboys. But the flip side to it is that if you're Brandon Weeden, it was not his fault that they lost those games.
Yep.
It was not his fault.
All right. And he did throw a late touchdown pass at the Eagles.
He threw an interception against Atlanta, but they had a lead at that time. Now, it sparked their comeback, but you still, even after they scored off of, once they intercepted them and then drove downfield, you still had a lead. So in the
they were
end,
up 28-17 at halftime.
And 21-7 prior to that. So the point is, Brandon Weeden put them in positions to win, and there were other factors that contributed to them losing. They should have never taken him out to begin with. That's the point.
But he was playing not to lose instead of to win.
Well,
At least Matt Castle
when
tried.
has Matt Castle ever played to win?
I was. He'll throw it down the field. Brandon Weeden wouldn't throw it down the field to anybody.
Maybe they weren't open.
You have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. Bottom line, you need Romo back.
That is correct.
Seattle's starting to look a little bit like Seattle again.
Football's back, and it already feels like the playoffs thanks to 1 Week Fantasy at DraftKings.com. With millions of dollars in prizes being paid out each week, every play in every game could take you closer to a life-changing payday. Hurry to DraftKings.com now. Use promo code TAKE and play for free with your first deposit in this Sunday's $1 million fantasy contest. This isn't fantasy as usual. This is DraftKings. Welcome to the big time. Enter TAKE for free entry now only at DraftKings.com. That's DraftKings.com.
Congrats to the Kansas City Royals, who became the first team in over 25 years to win the World Series the year after losing the World Series. Bullpens were the story of the series. New York outscoring Kansas City 18-12 in the first 6 innings. You just heard about resilience, but the Royals outscoring the Mets 15-1 from the 7th inning on. Stephen A., what happened to the Mets?
Well, first of all, kudos to the Royals. I did not expect them to win this series because I'm of the belief that pitching wins championships. I forgot that it's not just starting pitching that you rely on, it's the bullpen. Yeah. And obviously with the Kansas City Royals, that clearly was their strength, even with Holland out, obviously having to have surgery just a few months ago. But in the end, while I sit here and I give the Royals all the credit in the world, they put the bat on the ball. They put it in play. They strike out less than anybody in Major League Baseball. They run the bases. They play small ball. They manufacture runs. And then they go out and they do the things, fundamentally speaking, that you need to do in order to win. The one thing that I think, however, must go, we have to speak on it, can't go unnoticed. The Mets had a lead in Game 1. You blew it. Not just an error by Wright, but also the blown save by Familia, all right, who didn't trust his 97-mile-per-hour sinker and instead tried to quick pitch Alex Gordon and then ended up costing him. You had the lead in Game 4, and you ultimately blew that, and you had the error by Daniel Murphy. You had the lead last night. Matt Harvey was sensational, answered the bell, pitched 8 complete innings. I had no problem with Terry Collins sending him out there to pitch, but he should have yanked him once he walked Kane. He should not have let him pitch to that second batter. Kane stole second, and then Hosmer smacked that shot, and ultimately Kane came home. That was the mistake. That's the lone mistake that was made as it pertained to Harvey. But in the end, the Mets lost this game because the Royals were more fundamentally sound. They know how to play this game, and more importantly, the Mets choked. There's no other way around this. When you lose because of errors, you have choked. That's what happened. Lucas Duda last night, the throw to home plate, not catch, wild throw and not catching Hosmer. Not that you could have ended the game right there. He messed up. So it's Duda, it's Murphy, and by the way, Cespedes, didn't show up. Daniel Murphy didn't show up. They won't be back next year. They played well through the playoffs, but when the World Series arrived, your hitters didn't hit and your defense committed errors, and it was against the most fundamentally sound team in baseball. That's why the Kansas City Royals are the champions. If
Lucas Duda just makes a decent throw home, they're going back to Kansas City for Game 6,
That's right? That's right.
And he overgrips the ball and threw a big curveball that the catcher couldn't even flag down. And all of a sudden, the heart fell out of the Mets. They were devastated again. Here's my bottom line to this World Series. The Mets turned back into the sad sack Mets. And you've been in New York a long time. You've covered a lot of Mets. You know the Mets. Even though they have won 2 World Series, down through baseball history, they have actually rivaled the Cubs as the sad sack organization, the dysfunctional organization, the one known for ineptitude, for when what can go wrong will go wrong. It's been Mets versus Cubs versus Mets versus Cubs, right? Yeah. And that's what struck me, is that they're still the same old Mets. Because what happened? The first batter up for Kansas City in Game 1, bottom of the first. Remember Escobar? That's right. Hits a long fly. And Cespedes, I don't know what he's doing, and he either lost it in the lights or his shoulder is hurting or whatever, and it bounces off his foot into an inside the park home run.
Cespedes seemed like he didn't even care.
He didn't care.
And batted 3 for 20 in this series.
And then Familia, untouchable, and he leaves the ball up over the plate to Alex Gordon, and he hits it to Oklahoma City. Remember that devastated the Mets right there. And then you lived and you died by Daniel Murphy, because he was Babe Ruth to this point, and then he never looks like a second baseman to me anyway. He looks like a power hitter playing second base.
He was also 3 for 20.
Yeah,
7
terrible.
strikeouts.
He was terrible.
Yeah.
And then he botches that ball. He botched another ball in the 12th inning last night that opened the floodgates. So you live and die by him, and in the end, you're just the same old Mets, and you lost in 5. You swept the Cubs, and you lost in 5.
Because the Cubs were the league leaders in strikeouts.
Yeah.
And Kansas City didn't strike out. At all.
Tough weekend for New York sports, and that comes from Miss Connecticut.
No doubt. No doubt.
How can I say this without hurting anybody's feelings? But it just does. I just don't give what y'all say that much merit. You know, it just doesn't. You know, I'm not going to put a Jim Mora on you and say the famous, you know, you think you know, but you just don't know and you never will. Although it's a great line. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I'm not saying that. I'll say it at some point before I stop playing.
I think he is too. I love me some number 18. Denver improved to a perfect 7-0 after beating the Packers 29-10. They now join the Patriots and Bengals as the only 7-0 teams left in the NFL, with 4 weeks to go until the highly anticipated game in Mile High. The Patriots are outscoring the Broncos by over 11 points a game, but the Broncos defense is giving up 3 fewer points per game, so we'll see what we'll give. Stephen A., who's the best team in the AFC right now, the Patriots or the Broncos?
Well, before I answer that question, I'd like to say this about that video that we just showed for Peyton Manning. If you want to insult the media, I can't think of a classier way to do it. Okay.
Well, he did it without doing it.
Well, he did it without doing it. It was very, very classy. The only thing that I would like to add to him is that when he says you think you do know, but you don't know and you never will, that's absolutely true, but primarily because number one, you guys would never tell us. And number two, even if we did know, you wouldn't admit it. So I just want to point that out in terms of people that watch football and watch what they do and what have you. They go through extraordinary measures to make sure we don't know. Even when we do know, they don't admit it. So let's not leave that out.
May I add this on what you just said?
Yes.
Sometimes they don't know.
That's right.
Sometimes they don't.
Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they don't. Now to answer the question about the Patriots and the Broncos.
Yes.
It depends on when you're talking about. If you're talking about the Patriots in this season, then it's the Patriots. If you're talking about what we saw last night, then it's a different ball game. Because if Denver's offense can do half of what it did against Green Bay last night, against anybody else, they'll be better than anybody else because of the way that defense is playing. But the question is, can you do that? Can you do that just against anybody else? I don't know that you can. I don't know if Ronnie Hillman and C.J. Anderson can run the football the way that they did last night, continuously, week after week after week. I don't know if the deep pass connection between Peyton Manning and Demaryius Thomas is something that can continue. I do believe that pass rush will still be there. I do believe that secondary in Denver will still be there. I do believe that that defense will remain elite all season long. But the question is whether or not you're going to be better than the Patriots. Because you see, one of the things that's going unnoticed, the Patriots, numbers-wise anyway, doesn't have a defense that is as effective as Denver's. But the Patriots' defense is not shabby with Nikovich and those boys. They know what they're doing. They're the 9th-ranked defense in the entire NFL. They rank 7th against the pass. I think like 7th against the rush, rather, like 15th against the pass. They sort of get it done. They find a way to beat you. And what they also do is this. With New England's offense being as prolific as it is, it applies pressure to an opposing offense to be more efficient because you don't want to give Tom Brady and those boys the ball too often. So as a result, defenses try to get into a situation where they're doing things they're not accustomed to doing. Like we've talked and debated about how somehow, some way these guys, the things that they do conventionally, they don't exercise against Bill Belichick. And we wonder why. Well, here's the reason why. They're trying anything against Bill Belichick because you don't want to go up against Tom Brady in that offense. as much as you normally would have to. So you're doing anything that you can to try and put up as many points on the board as you possibly can, because you know Tom Brady and them are going to get their shot. In the end, I would give New England a slight edge, because what we saw from Denver, we just saw last night.
Yeah.
What we've been seeing from New England, we've been seeing all season long. I would give them the edge over Denver right now, but that doesn't mean I'm going to give them that edge November 29th when they meet.
So are you ready to plunge on it?
What you mean?
That you're ready to go out on that limb and say that Denver will win?
Well, we talked about.
I know.
I don't
you
know
said
why
it.
I don't know why you keep asking.
But then I heard you on SportsCenter yesterday, and you were kind of vacillating.
Well, they didn't ask me about that. They didn't ask me about the Patriots compared to the Broncos.
But you were
talking about a
defending the
different subject. Well, I was defending them because a lot of people sit there and lambaste them. I try to be fair.
Oh.
You understand? I try to be fair. I don't get emotional like you. I try to be fair. And I'm just saying,
I try to have convictions.
You try to have convictions, even when your opinion should be convicted. You still try to have convictions. All I'm trying to say to you is, well, it depends on which one we're talking about here. I'm just saying to you that the New England Patriots right now have shown a level of continuity via Tom Brady than the Broncos have via Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning still has 11 interceptions and just 7 touchdowns. Peyton Manning's only completing 62% of his passes. Peyton Manning hasn't been the Peyton Manning of old for a myriad of reasons, and we understand that. But we also know that prior to last night, what we were seeing from Denver's offense wasn't going to be enough to beat New England. I just believe that there are games where you show up in a particular season. And I think when New England goes to Denver, more so than if New England had to go to Foxborough, I think New England would show up.
Denver to Foxborough.
Denver to Foxborough. I think Denver would show up for that game.
Okay, allow me to put in perspective what is about to happen. Last night we saw Green Bay's offensive line have a lot of trouble.
Yes.
They gave Aaron a little time here and there, but a lot of times they just caved on both sides. But I'm here to tell you that Green Bay's offensive line is 20 times more experienced than New England's offensive line is. That makeshift, inexperienced with the rookie free agent center for New England. Green Bay's offensive line, I would give a much higher grade overall than New England's. I think Green Bay's defense is, despite what you saw last night, it's still a little better than New England's defense. I think it is. Now, again, they lost a couple of corners last night. They lost a little depth at corner. Sam Shields out. So I get that. But my point is, just on paper, they came into the game allowing the fewest points in the NFL.
Yep.
And yet, I'm ready to plunge. November 29th, that's a Sunday night, if memory serves, at Mile High. I say that Tom Brady will beat the Denver Broncos, because Tom Brady, I'm here to tell you again, is playing at the highest level any quarterback in the history of this game has ever played at, starting with last year's Super Bowl all the way through last Thursday night's Miami devastation. Tom Brady, as I keep pointing out, is on a mission to deflate every opponent, to get even with Roger Goodell by getting even with the National Football League. He is trying to flatten every opponent, to devastate, annihilate, to leave them on the canvas groping for a clue of how to get back up off the canvas. And we saw what he did to Buffalo at Buffalo early.
Yeah.
They still haven't quite gotten back up off the canvas. We saw what he did to the Jets 2 weeks ago, right? And what did the Jets do at the Raiders? We're going to talk about it here in just a little bit. They just couldn't get up off the canvas yet because Brady annihilated their psyches because they couldn't stop him. Both those teams thought they had a really good defense going into the Brady game, and then they're saying, we're not all that because he exposed us and picked us to pieces. And I'm not saying he will pick Denver's defense to pieces. Not in a place that Tom Brady has not played all that well, except for one game against Tim Tebow when Psycho Tom came out and they destroyed Tim Tebow's Broncos. Remember that one?
That wasn't hard. Who could forget? It wasn't that hard. But
all right. So my point is, because Brady is on such a mission, I believe he will inspire his team to beat Peyton's team on that night. They're just playing at such a high level. They make plays, and when he starts making plays, the defense starts responding to him. So loved what I saw last night. I can't make any case on paper for Brady winning on November 29th after what we saw happen to Green Bay's very experienced offensive line. But watch what happens. I think this team is on a 16-0 mission that very well could lead to 19-0.
I just think you're looking at last night at Denver, and I think that, you make a case for Green Bay in their defense. to elevate Denver's offense. And I'm just of the mindset, look, prior to last night's game against Denver, they played San Francisco, St. Louis, and San Diego. Now, we've seen some flashes from St. Louis because Gurley is the real deal. No question about it. And I'm a Tavon Austin fan. No question about it. So we look at it from that perspective, and we know what St. Louis's front seven is like. So it is what it is. But San Francisco, can it get any awful? I mean, listen, we don't even have time to get in the Kaepernick today. Good Lord of mercy, what's going on in San Francisco there. And, of course, the San Diego Chargers have been a huge disappointment. But this Green Bay Packers defense does rank 7th overall, but it does rank 17th against the pass. It does rank 26th against the rush. It is 23rd in yards allowed.
When you say 7th overall, you're talking about yards allowed.
That's
not
right.
Points allowed.
Well, it says points allowed, not yards allowed.
Okay, after last night. But before last night, they went in number 1.
But I'm just looking at them, and I'm just saying to myself, I just look at Green Bay, and I'm not sold. I am sold on Denver's defense. I am sold on what that defense can do. I'm just telling you, I look at their secondary right now. I mean, it's hard to get open against these dudes. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens. And it's going to tell me a lot about Denver and that defense, because more so, it's not even about who wins or loses the game to me. It's how I see Denver's defense look against Tom Brady. That's going to tell me a lot about how legitimate their title aspirations are, because there is no question in anybody's mind that if you want to get to the Super Bowl out of the AFC, you are going to have to go through Tom Brady and the New England Patriots to get there. So that defense, to me, it's going to tell me something about what they're able to do against New England.
I will give you this. This Denver defense is way, way, way better than the one that faced Russell Wilson and got annihilated in the Super Bowl 2 Super Bowls.
That's right.
Right?
That is correct.
But if they can run the ball and Peyton plays like he did last night, they might have a shot in my
Well,
eye.
I'm just, again,
I still think that. I still think Brady has the edge.
But that defense needs to show up against Tom Brady.
Des Bryant went on a profanity-laced tirade in the Cowboys locker room Sunday night in response to the video that allegedly showed him making derogatory remarks about Seattle's Ricardo Lockett, who had been knocked unconscious. Des denying the allegation, saying he would never do such a thing. Stephen A.
I won't ever wish bad on a player that's been knocked down. Come on, man. Stop with Not once I said, hey, that's what you get. I got on one knee and prayed for that man. Man, on my daughter's soul, man. I would never in my life do that to anybody. Man, I could have been talking about something completely else. I'm too busy trying to break it up, trying to get our players back. I'm telling Richard and I'm telling Earl, hey, y'all get y'all players back. Come on, man. I was more talking to the officials than anybody.
Sorry, Stephen A., I got a little excited about that. Des denying his allegations. Obviously, we just heard the sound. What's your reaction?
My honest reaction, Molly, Skip, I usually don't like to do this. I think the media should be ashamed of itself. Whoever tweeted out that video, you knew good and damn well what you were implying. You were implying that while Ricardo Lockett was on the turf, motionless, potentially paralyzed for all we know, that Des Bryant, whatever you read from his lips, whatever you said, I don't care what he said. You know, when somebody said, well, that's what you get or whatever the case, unless you know definitively that he is talking about Ricardo Lockett to create a stir where there could be a question about a football player literally mocking a guy on the field, laying motionless for minutes. We don't even know if he were paralyzed or not. To attach that to Des Bryant and put him in a position where he has to go out there and defend himself off of that, I just think, you know, this industry is getting to a point where it could be disgusting sometimes. If we're going to be real honest about it. Bruce Irvin, for the Seattle Seahawks, tweeted that Des was yelling at the officials the whole time. And we get all of that. But all I'm saying is this. Even without knowing all the details, here's what I mean by when I'm going off about the media right now, and I almost never do this. But I got to be absolute 100% proof positive that that's what you said, and that's exactly who you were talking about in order to just put that light out there, to shine that light on another player. These guys go out there, we report on them, we ain't playing the NFL. Yeah, I'm going to talk about you if you're playing like garbage, just like I'm going to talk about you if you're great. But if there's something along this line where you, listen, Ricardo Locke is in the hospital in Dallas. He hasn't gotten home yet. His family's with him. I got a text from one of his friends this morning said Marshawn Lynch has been by his side. He refused to leave with the team. He's been with him all night long. You got people worried about this brother and what's going to happen to him. And to sit there and to put Des Bryant in a situation where he is literally being accused of mocking this guy or saying whatever, that's what you get, or whatever the case may be. And they're saying that he meant that towards Ricardo Lockett. And then you got reports talking about how, well, you know what, he meant it because of some hit that Seattle, blindside hit that Seattle did, 3 years earlier or whatever. It's like, what are we doing? What are we doing? I mean, look, I don't know exactly what Des said. I didn't read his lips. Okay. And yeah, I'm not there per se. But neither are those reporters who tweeted about it and threw out that video to imply that this is what he meant. And the fact that just based on conjecture, you got an NFL player literally being accused of mocking a guy that's sitting on a turf motionless and potentially paralyzed, at least at that moment in time, because that's what I was thinking. Mm-hmm. I just think it's sad. I think it's sad, and I don't think it's right. I don't think Des Bryant did that. I don't think he would do that. I don't think Des Bryant would do that. But whether he did or not, the point is, unless you are definitively and absolutely sure, that is not something you should be speculating about.
Mm-hmm. I hear what you're saying. I have no idea what's going down here, for sure. Do I believe that sentiment could ever be in Des Bryant's heart? I do not. He's a football player. He loves this game, and I think he cherishes the ability to play this game because he's had to miss much of this game for periods of time, and I think he's come to love the great opportunity that God gave him just to get out there and play. So would he wish that? No. Okay, but now let's get back to what we see on the video. It sure looks to me like he is mouthing those words. If I can lip read, it looks like those words are coming out of his mouth. And he did acknowledge, did Des, as he refuted what the media was quote-unquote accusing him of. He said, I could have been talking about something completely ... else, like something complete. So he acknowledged he could have said those words. That's what he gets. But it could have been aimed at somebody else because there was a whole lot of back and forth trash talk going on because there is lingering bad blood between these teams. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure some of the Seattle players were not happy with this Heath kid who laid out Lockett on as a Cowboy special teamers. Even though I thought it was a brutal but a legal hit, it did draw a flag. That's fine with me. It's almost like just on principle it deserved a flag, not by the letter of the law. This is a violent game that's going on out there. We know this. And the most dangerous time is on punt returns. No longer kickoff returns. They've sort of legalized some of the, they've sort of taken some of the brutality out of kickoff returns. But on punt returns, bad stuff can go down. And it did, and God bless him. I hope he's okay. It sounded like he was going to be okay, that he just wound up with a concussion. Yeah. But I don't know if Des got caught up in the moment defending his teammate, and they're going back and forth. I don't know. The comment could have been aimed at somebody else. That's what he gets, meaning, Agreed. Who knows? Mm-hmm. That's what Richard Sherman gets, or Earl Thomas gets, or who knows who we know Des. He plays with such emotion, such passion, such rage to win. His emotions could spill over, and it was directed at somebody else as he's trying to defend his teammate who delivered the blow. So I don't know what it was, but I don't believe that's in Des Bryant's heart. I just don't. But it looks bad on the surface because it looks like he said that at that moment.
But let's also understand why it looks bad. Skip Bayless, these aren't bloggers that just tweeted out something or saw something on their television screen, clipped it with their camera phone, and then went from there, and it's on Twitter or something like that. These are journalists who were at the game who tweeted it out, according to the reports. Anyway, I'm saying that you have a responsibility.
But they didn't make it up.
Yeah, but it's not a matter of making it up. You have a responsibility to at least go down there and ask this man the question before
Absolutely.
you
have context.
and have context before you just tweet it out for the world, and all of a sudden it gains momentum to the point where Des Bryant gets back in the locker room and he's hearing all of this stuff.
The guy who tweeted out wasn't at the game. I'm pretty sure he's from Houston, right?
I don't know.
Fox 26 in Houston.
I didn't know.
I think he posted it just off. He's just using off the. He took the footage off the broadcast. Right.
Okay. All right.
So they're reacting. The reporters at the game are reacting to what they saw. Anybody could have seen it. Anybody could have pulled it off.
We all saw it. I saw it on TV. I saw it on TV. But what I'm saying to you is that it's unfair that he walks into a locker room and rather than just ask him the question, he has to fight off accusations. That's entirely different. Asking somebody what went on at that particular moment, what were you saying, et cetera, is entirely different than somebody walking into their locker room, being in front of the media, and having to fight off accusations. You and I both know that half the battle, most of the time, half the battle is fighting off one's interpretation than fighting off facts. And when you have to walk up in there and you're confronted by those accusations that somebody would literally sit up there and say, you know what, that's what you were doing. It looks like that's what you were doing. That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad, is all I'm saying.
The media is not out of bounds to ask that question.
I'm not saying they're out of bounds to ask the question. I'm saying they're out of bounds to sit there and paint a picture as if he is guilty of something that he has to refute. We didn't know. We didn't know what he was saying. And Bruce Irvin had to go out there in the tweet and basically say, again, you know, he wasn't talking to us. He was talking to the officials. I'm saying asking the question and being blind and just wanting to know is entirely different than him fending off an interpretation of that magnitude. This is not a fight. This is not a sideline rant by Greg Hardy. This is not something like that. This is a player that was on the field that literally looked as if he were paralyzed, and then you juxtapose that to Des Bryant saying that's what you get. That's very, very incendiary.
But he uttered what surely appear to be those words moments after he's prone on the turf.
Right.
Okay, so it's fair to ask.
But guys were talking and guys were arguing. Again, I'm going to repeat myself. I'm not saying the question shouldn't have been asked. I'm saying he wasn't just being asked a question. He was fending off accusations.
Well, you know what would have been nice? If Des had just said, hey, I know that looked bad, but I was talking to Bennett or whoever it was.
I got that. I got that, and that's fair. But at the same time, a lot of times we anticipate and expect athletes to communicate in manners that we would when they're just not capable at it, particularly when you're in the heat of the moment. All I'm trying to say is that it's not about even the accusations that he had to fend off. It's about the fact that it's those specific accusations. If it's something far more innocuous, that's different. But when you sit up there and you have to fend off accusations that you literally were saying that's what you get about a guy that could have been paralyzed on the field, it's just something that to some small degree at least is a bit inhumane when you don't take into consideration the kind of way that can sully somebody's name.
In the history of this very violent sport, those kinds of lines have been uttered many times about a guy who's prone on the turf by the opposing team.
Well, I've seen it said by a guy prone on the turf by a fan base, I
know players who have said things.
Okay. All right.
It's just what it's the nature of it.
I'm saying not to that degree, not in a situation like that.
Yeah, but this is a gladiators game.
Okay.
Much as they love each other and care about each other from.
Well, let me tell you something. He's not sitting up there and being as adamant and vehement in his denial if he doesn't care. The fact is that you care because you know that there are certain things that are beyond the pale that are just too low to go.
I agree.
Unless you are sure, you got no business putting somebody in a position where they have to defend themselves against something that's low. Do you know how low you got to be to watch a guy on the field looking as if he's paralyzed and sitting there saying, tough, that's what you get? You have any idea how that makes somebody look? To me, there's just lines that should not be crossed by us. And I think in this particular case it was.
To use RG3's term, maybe a victim of clickbait? We don't know.
And now, for Geico's edition of Stuff Found in Your Car, we go inside your side door pocket.
Hello, yes, the crumpled receipt with gum in it. From your anniversary dinner, you sprang for expensive wine, your server was Beth. That dinner was a couple $100. Money you could get back if you switched to Geico and saved hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. I bet you'd save that receipt. Frame it even. But really, where did I go wrong? Was it the corkage fee?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com today.
Through 7 games, Derek Carr has the Raiders somewhere they haven't been since 2011, above 500. The Raiders offense dominated the Jets defense in a 34-20 win after winning just 11 games. The past 3 years, the Raiders are one of 5 AFC teams with a winning record. The Jets have now lost 2 in a row and are also 4-3. Stephen A., which of these teams has a better shot at making the playoffs?
Well, I don't think there's any question it's the Oakland Raiders, and I don't even need to take a look at this.
Wow, you surprised me.
I'm surprised myself. I didn't expect them to look like that. Now, obviously, you can be damning against the New York Jets. They got beat up yesterday. Fitzpatrick goes out with the torn labrum in his thumb. Geno Smith comes in relief and immediately gets pummeled, and he's got an abdomen injury and a shoulder injury. He might not be available. The Jets literally were on the phone this morning looking for another quarterback because they desperately need one. Brandon Marshall got injured yesterday as well. So when you look at it from those perspectives, clearly this is an offense that is going to struggle moving forward, and they're 4-3 with Miami on the come up and Buffalo still relevant within the division. So you've got that issue. Of course, even though the Pittsburgh Steelers lost, they're still 4-4, and they're in a position to make some noise. But when you look at the Oakland Raiders, these brothers are impressive, man. I just got to give it up. I mean, again, they've been a model of ineptitude, if not worse, since they went to the Super Bowl back in 2002 with Rich Gannon and those boys as their quarterback. They've been an absolute embarrassment. I felt that Hugh Jackson should have always maintained their coach. They were 8-8 under him. That's the only time they played 500 ball. Other than those 2 seasons, in the last 12 years or so, the Oakland Raiders haven't won more than 5 games in a season, with the exception of those 2. That's just flat out pathetic. And I was one of those guys that, believed there needed to be wholesale changes. But nevertheless, they are impressive right now. This kid, Murray, can play. Had 113 yards rushing yesterday, averaged better than 5.5 yards a carry. Amari Cooper is a stud. This young brother is special. And Crabtree isn't too bad for these guys either. Let's give credit where credit is due. He looks like a different quarterback now that Colin Kaepernick is not throwing him the ball. I also think it's time to give Jack Del Rio a little bit of love because he seems to be doing a really good job being old school, knowing the game, knowing the opponents the way that he does because he's been around so long and having a second chance after being a head coach in Jacksonville, after being the defensive coordinator under John Fox in Denver. Now he's there in Oakland, and he's doing a good job thus far. And last but not least, Derek Carr is the best quarterback of his draft class thus far. Better than Blake Bortles, better than Johnny Manziel, better than Teddy Bridgewater. And there needs to be some executives who should answer, particularly Houston, who forbid Bill O'Brien and those guys to take Derek Carr, from what I was told, because of David Carr, his brother, and what a bust he was once upon a time in Houston. They didn't want another Carr. The owner didn't want another Carr coming up in there because he was fearful it was going to embarrass the organization. Well, he messed up there, and he messed up things for Bill O'Brien and the Texans because they could use David Carr right now. In the end, though, I think the Jets have had, defensively, they've had 2 bad halves. First half against Philadelphia, and then yesterday, of course. Their defense is still elite, but it ain't Denver, and it doesn't look that great now, and your offense isn't good enough for you to recover. The Oakland Raiders, I'm not there yet, but I'm going to give them some love and some credit and acknowledge that this team has a legitimate shot, as you said weeks ago, to make the playoffs. Yeah,
I got to give you props on that.
It's because of Derek Carr. And it's because of Amari Cooper and Derek Carr in that offense. They can do some things. But
you believed in this team since day one, and I doubted you. I'm not going to lie.
Thank you. You didn't mention the leader of this team, especially the leader of the defense. At 38 years of age, Charles Woodson is playing as great a football as any 38-year-old defensive back.
Heisman Trophy candidate when Peyton Manning, when Peyton Manning was in Tennessee, and here he is in the next millennial, and he's doing what he's doing.
Still doing it.
Unbelievable.
Are you writing your Jets off?
Not yet. They just don't look bad. I got to see what happens. What's the status of Fitzpatrick? okay? And I don't know what quarterback they're going to go out there and get, nor do I know how extensive Geno Smith's injuries are. There's a lot of questions right now. The Jets have to have a quarterback, and they have to have both Decker and Brandon Marshall healthy enough to play. I don't know what the status is with Brandon Marshall right now.
Yeah. I'm going to say this again. The Jets' loss at Oakland was a Tom Brady loss because they went into that game at Foxborough thinking, we can do this. We got Darrelle Revis on our side now, and he knows he'll be kryptonite for the great Tom Brady, and he wasn't, and neither was Cromartie, and neither was Buster Screen.
Right.
And neither was Todd Bowles. And I think it devastated their psyches to the point they couldn't get back up for this game because we've seen these plays. I don't know if you've been running them or not. I wasn't looking. But the Tywan Jones play and then the Crabtree play, they just didn't tackle them. Just tackle.
It was embarrassing.
You just didn't show up. Look at this Tywan Jones.
Look at that. How do you get one tackle, two misses, three, four?
Whoa. Come
nice.
on, come on.
Come on now.
Okay.
That's 4 missed tackles. Four missed tackles.
Crabtree
just look at the angle. I mean, how do you not tackle this guy? Look at this.
Looks like the Giants.
That's nice.
Look at this.
That's
are you kidding me? Look at that.
Come on.
Really?
Didn't want that very badly.
That's just bad. That's just bad.
Okay, that's where you just don't show up. Todd Bowles will not let that happen again. They will come to play from here on as they sort of shake themselves off the Tom Brady hangover and all that. And I do think they can win a bunch of their games down the stretch. I don't think they can beat New England even at Jets, but they got the Giants. They have to go to Dallas when Romo should be back, please God. But, and they got to go to Buffalo. So it won't be easy, and I don't know who the quarterback's going to be. Now, I told you before the draft, I really like Bryce Petty, but he is a raw rookie who played in a run and shoot at Baylor, and so I don't think, can you throw him into this fire?
I don't think you can yet. I really don't, but I do think he's the future.
Okay.
I do think next year and beyond, you're looking at Bryce Petty even more so than you're looking at Geno Smith.
So I look at the Raiders' schedule, and it's starting to open up, especially if they could win this Sunday at your Steelers, and I give them a shot because Le'Veon Bell, obviously, God bless him, he's gone. And so there'll be a little hangover from that. And Ben was a little rusty through 3 picks, obviously.
Yep.
And I give the Raiders a chance. If they could win that game, then all of a sudden they got Minnesota at Detroit, at Tennessee, Kansas City.
Yes.
They do have to go to Denver. They do have to go to Green Bay. But then they get San Diego and Kansas City to finish.
Right.
They can win, 5 or 6 more of these games.
Yes.
And the team that is going to be the odd team out of this wild card race, I fear, is your Pittsburgh Steelers.
Possibly, but I got to tell you this: I do think the Raiders have a chance to go 10-6.
You do?
I do. I said the Raiders. I said the Raiders.
Oh, I
said the Raiders have a chance to go 10-6. I think Pittsburgh can be nipped and tucked with the Jets for that last playoff spot.
All right.
That's how I view it.
But you've seen that closing Pittsburgh schedule after their bye. They go to Seattle, go to Cincinnati. They get the Broncos at home.
I'm banking on Ben Roethlisberger not being as rusty and being a bit healthier moving forward. Yeah. Now, without Le'Veon Bell, I mean, look, it is what it is. But D'Angelo Williams filled in nicely.
He did.
He's a good.
Talk about a backup. He's not a backup.
He's really not a backup. He's a starter. But with D'Angelo Williams combined with Martavis Bryant, Marcus Wheaton, Antonio Brown, Heath Miller, I think that especially if they get some help back in their offensive line, and you get a couple of guys, at least one of them that comes back, because obviously Pouncey and other guys out. I just look at Pittsburgh having a chance, but I definitely think that the Raiders have, especially with their schedule, they have a legit chance. And the one that jumps out at me, obviously Tennessee just ain't ready. They ain't there. And the Detroit Lions, we ain't even get into.
Oh gosh, that was bad.
Caldwell will be lucky if he has a job in 2 weeks.
You're right. Raiders Nation.
If you're a Raiders fan, right, you have to be very encouraged just in the future because this team is so young.
I can't knock them, and I love seeing Crabtree run into the black hole. It was nice to see. I haven't seen that in quite some time.
The Colts disputing a Fox Sports report saying Andrew Luck has been playing through multiple fractured ribs since week 3. Colts general manager Ryan Grigson released the following statement. Our injury reports are accurate. If people have any questions about player injuries, they should refer to our injury reports. Luck's ribs have yet to be listed on the Colts injury report this season. Skip, what do you make of this?
Stephen A. Smith. This is special. Is it possible?
What kind of special?
Yeah, is it possible that the franchise that ratted out the New England Patriots for quote-unquote cheating has been itself cheating? Karma. I wrote that word down right there. Karma.
Sorry, I took it.
What goes around might be, I don't know if this is true. It could be coming back around. Is it possible that the whistleblowers are getting the whistle blown on them? Is it possible that the pot was accusing the kettle? Is that possible? I don't know if this is true. I'm just throwing it out there because here's what I do know. The Colts franchise has been reeling ever since they blew the whistle at halftime, or actually just before halftime, on the New England Patriots in the AFC Championship game in Foxborough, Massachusetts. They proceeded to lose the second half of that game with legally inflated footballs, Mr. Brady. 28-0, they lost the second half. And so far this year, I think we could all agree they haven't looked anything like the Super Bowl team that a whole lot of people, including you, thought that they would. So you're right, Molly. Maybe instant karma has gotten them here.
I'm not really paying attention to the karma aspect because I know that's just your excuse to just shower love and praise on the Patriots like you always do. You just can't help it. Or I'm not going to waste any time. I'm not going to waste any time with that. What I will tell you is this in all seriousness. Grigson is suspect, and I think that he looks suspect. And the reason why I say that he looks suspect is because nobody's going to believe anything that he has to say right now because, to be quite honest with you, sir, no one cares. What we care about is an Indianapolis Colts team that we see as 3-4. What we care is about the fact that Andrew Luck doesn't appear to be himself, certainly doesn't appear to have the same zip in his passes, seems a bit reluctant and hesitant to throw the ball. When he throws the ball, he seems to be a fraction of a second late. When he throws the ball, he looks off open receivers and throws it in double coverage. Makes no sense whatsoever. He's been the first to point the finger at himself, and Grigson is very, very lucky that he has a team and a locker room based on all the aficionados you talk to and watch talking on the air. They talk about how this locker room is class personified. I listen to them and I credit them because I haven't been in the Colts locker room with these particular players, so I don't know how they are. But what I would tell you is that they seem to be highly respected, stand-up guys who are really about, absorbing the brunt of the blame rather than pointing it in a different direction. You have an offensive line that has allowed Andrew Luck to get beat up. The belief is that if he did get hurt, it was in that Tennessee game when he took a couple of vicious shots. Obviously, even though he didn't get sacked against the Jets, but he played against Buffalo and then the Jets, he took his share of hits those first two games. All right, so when you look at it from that perspective, he clearly hasn't been himself. There's no denying that. We can't absolve him for how he's looked because he's looked bad. That's why they're the 21st ranked offense. That's why they've got the 13th ranked passing attack. They spend a boatload of money in the offseason on receivers. Paid little to nothing to the offensive line. And that's what this really comes down to. You got Andrew Luck weapons, but you didn't buffer his protection. And so when you look at it from that perspective and the fact that Grigson has been there, the fact that this is a guy in his first 3 years that was sacked 100 times, hit about an additional 71 to 72 times. They said that Andrew Luck had been hit more than any quarterback in football coming into this season over the previous 3 years. So when you combine that with the semi-beating he's taken this year, with Harriman, he was supposed to be the big catch because the Eagles shouldn't have lost him. They shouldn't have reneged on the offer that they gave him, but he got picked up by the Colts once he departed from Philadelphia, and then Pagano was like, well, look, he's not doing the job, so I'm going to bench him from Mewhort. I believe that's his name. So he comes up in there, and he's there for you, and the protection seemingly has gotten better. In the end, you still lost the last two to New England and New Orleans. I don't think you're going to beat the Carolina Panthers tonight at Carolina. I'm here to tell you that. And as a result, I think they're snowballing right now. When you combine that with Grigson arguing with the owner in the locker room, it just tells us that there's something that's going on that transcends the players or the coach. And that's a big problem for Grigson because Irsay ain't firing himself.
I cannot let you give Andrew Luck a pass because of his offensive line. I dare you to go check the tape of the New England game in Indianapolis.
I don't need to check the tape. I told you he's been throwing the ball badly. Okay. I said that in my soliloquy.
All right, but what I'm saying is Andrew Luck also often had enough time in that game to tape another beard commercial before he threw the football.
Yes, and
I'm serious.
And
he had lots of time.
And I also said he looked off open receivers and threw into double coverage. You just don't see me being as demonstrative as I am when I'm praising or I'm getting on your Cowboys or somebody.
No,
but I feel bad because I love Andrew Luck. I love his skill set. I love his game. I just don't like what I've seen from him this year. I think he's been awful this year, no doubt.
He has regressed.
He has regressed.
Thank you.
But I do believe that's not entirely his fault, number one. And I do believe that the future will be brighter than the immediate past has been. I think right now I'm looking at Grigson and Pagano more so than I'm looking at Andrew Luck.
All right. And just to start off with, I was not showering praise on New England. I was just showering a little suspicion on Grigson.
It was a little fishy.
Yeah, because you're still upset with them because they reported Patriots.
Because they blew the whistle on somebody who was not cheating.
Can I get a score, please? Can we focus on tonight, Monday Night Football? Do we have a score in this one?
I'm picking
or am I putting you on the
Carolina
spot
and
with
Cam Newton to win 27-21.
Meanwhile, Ravens coach John Harbaugh says Steve Smith Sr. suffered a tear of his Achilles and will be out for the season, but he has a feeling he will be back. Stephen A, is the Ice-Up Sun era over?
Well, I don't know. He's a tough rider. I don't think he wants to depart from the game on this level. I think he wants to go out on his own terms, but he is a different cat. He'd certainly have a future in this business, I can tell you that much. He might decide to walk away. He's his own man. He's going to make that decision on his own, but I suspect that he doesn't want to go out this way. He had 300, 100-plus yards this season already, was the leading receiver on the Ravens, still has a lot left in him. We'll see.
Yeah, I hope you're right about this. I would love to see him come back for at least one more year, but his heart's really going to have to be in it because there's no longer or tougher rehab than Achilles rupture rehab, especially for a player who relies on high-speed cutting. It is hard to come back full speed from this.
If he does not come back, we'll see him in the Hall of Fame.
Think so?
I think so.
It'll be a close call.
We'll see him in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I want to see him perform one more time.
I hope so too, but I agree it will be close. Monday Night Football on ESPN, Colts, Panthers. Guys, you're both going with the Panthers.
No doubt.
I want to pick the Colts just so I could be right and go out on a limb, but I can't.
Oh, come on.
I can't. No conviction.
We're so surprised.
For
We're so surprised.
Whatever. Gino Auriemma's here tomorrow. Finally, some greatness on this set. Have a good day, everybody. See you tomorrow. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. Catch First Take weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern and catch the re-air at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2.
Last week, Julie Carroll posted a status that read, "Just had the most delicious banana ever." It got 2 likes and 4 comments. Well, Julie, Geico also wants to make a comment. What if we told you in as little as 15 minutes you could save hundreds of dollars on your car insurance by switching to Geico? With those hundreds of dollars, we bet you can find another banana equally, if not more delicious than the one you had last week. Hashtag go bananas. Hashtag savings.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.